begin.
Welcome to Keeping Diversity and Inclusion in Mind while engaging and exciting readers. Our presenter today is Nick Glass, founder and executive director of TeachingBooks. And joining us today is also Deb Sawyer, excuse me, Deb. And Nick and Deb, we always look forward and thank you so much. We expect to learn so much today. And we also appreciate that you're a conference silver sponsor. Thank you. It's all yours.
Very welcome. And thank you, everybody. And pleasure to be here. Thank you for taking some time this afternoon to be a part of what I view as a very important conversation about how can we go about keeping diversity and inclusion literally in mind as we're doing our work. And so we're going to try to, over the course of about 30-ish minutes, show you some tools and strategies. I'm going to invite you all to follow along and make it as real for you as possible. The wonderful thing about these online settings is you all definitely have a device with you, otherwise you couldn't be here. And if you're comfortable with working in two browsers or separate window, listening and trying so you can get the most out of it. If you can get some hands-on experience, that would be great. So again, my name is Nick Glass, and I'm very pleased to be here with Deborah Salyer. Deb, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everybody.
And what we're going to do is I'm going to be sharing my screen and sharing ideas, and Deb will chime in anytime she wants, as can you. And then also please feel free to chat. Deb will be on the chat as well. But the goal of this session is that you walk out of here feeling that you have some new strategies for delving deeper to honoring diversity and inclusion in your work. And how to keep that in the forefront. I've got some tools and some resources to help you keep that in the forefront of your thought, because it takes a lot of effort for some of us, myself very much, to always keep thinking about other perspectives. And yet all we care about is all of our children and all of our communities. So how do we do that? And so TeachingBooks has worked very hard over the years doing this. And again, I want to make sure you are aware of that. So any questions before I delve in? Great. So I'm going to switch my screen over to TeachingBooks. If you're unfamiliar with TeachingBooks, it is a library of instructional materials about books and authors. It's available to absolutely everybody in our state through the California State Library and the California K-12 Online Content Project. So everything you're about to see here is provided to you as a California resident, funded by Prop 98 and available to every teacher, librarian, staff, student, family from anywhere in the state, campus and remote. The service is all about trying to deepen your relationship to the book. I started it with this idea of what happens if everybody could meet the author when they're reading a text. What would happen if when you're reading, say, Esperanza Rising, if Pam Munoz Ryan could be there? Or last year we had Pam Munoz Ryan at the conference talking about her new book, Mañana Land. What happens if everybody can have her there when they're reading the book? And that's what this is, the foundation of it is. But within that foundation is the really important mindset of keeping culturally relevant pedagogy in mind. And what I mean by that is that I want to make sure that I am always respectful and thoughtful and inclusive about other cultures. And so as you go through TeachingBooks homepage, you'll see a box here that says Teach Diverse Books. That's what we're going to focus on now. So I'm kind of making an assumption that everybody here knows something about TeachingBooks before I get too deep into this. So I'm just going to click into the Diverse Books Toolkit.
Nick, we can't see your screen.
Oh, why not? Because I didn't hit share. Thank you. So glad you told me.
And remember your sound.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. Let's try that again. So let's go back to the slide that I thought I was sharing. Welcome. I invite all of you to sign in. I assumed I was showing you things, and I'm a big believer in not repeating everything that's on the screen. So let me now repeat a few things.
Nick?
Yeah.
So we see all your work that makes
my shoulders I grabbed the wrong screen.
Punch up.
Another problem. Let's try that one more time.
That's all right.
Let's get this one. Super. How about that one?
Ta-da! That is
Thank
correct.
you. Thank you, Deb. So glad you all told me. So what I want to do here is make sure that you can follow along. So if you go to teachingbooks.net/login, you can sign in and be doing everything we're doing. You sign in with your school email address, it will put you straight into your account. If you're using Clever or ClassLink, that's magic. Just use your Clever Class Link, it automatically puts you in. Otherwise, use your school email domain, and that will put you straight in. Anybody else, just use your email address. It will still have you go through a process, and everybody attending, even if you're not from California, can get in and use this service right now. Okay. And then the page I'm referencing the whole time is the diverse books page. Back to TeachingBooks. So TeachingBooks is a library of resources about books and authors. I can look up any title. I can look up Manana Land, and then I can have resources such as the author there talking about why she wrote it. I can have an audio performance, vocabulary list, discussion guides, book trailers, all kinds of pieces about it. What I want to focus on today, though, is our diverse books toolkit. I want everyone to walk out of here feeling equipped and prepared to be thinking deeper about cultural representation in your work. That could be in as you're reading a text, how are you assessing it? It could be in analyzing your collection to make sure you have the right needs. It could be just learning yourself so you can keep thinking and learning about the field of diversity in children's and young adult books. So our diverse books toolkit, and you can access it a few ways. Before we even go into the details, I want to make sure all of you can access it. From the home page, I'm going to click the logo and go back to the home page. You can just scroll down a little bit and you'll see under the area for educators and adults, there's a box here that says infuse diverse books into your teaching, into your reading. That takes you to the diverse books toolkit. You can scroll down a little bit more and you'll see here a box that says teach diverse books. You can also go to the footer of any page and click into the diverse books toolkit. You also can go to for educators. On the top bar of the screen, it says for educators, and you can go into that, and then there you can click on diverse books. It's in many, many places because I want you to know you have this toolkit. Many of you have probably heard of We Need Diverse Books. It's a really important movement that's focus is, among many things, but its primary goal is to increase the number of diverse books that are out there. And the way to do that is to get people to see them, purchase them, show publishers to invest in them, make more of them, show them, purchase them, make publishers invest in them, and on we go. We need diverse books. There's a huge gap, right? We know that. We all know how few books there are published for each culture, however you want to define cultural experience. We know there's not enough of them. How can we help you find them? So the first part I want to cover is identifying. Second part is to help you think deeper about the books. And the third part is to help you review where you are as a library. And are you having all the materials you need to do that? So we're going to look at identifying diverse books, digging into them deeply with cultural relevant resources, and then analyzing your own collection. Those are the three things we're about to cover. Any questions before I move on? And take this incrementally. Wonderful. Again, for everybody who has joined late or anything, I invite all of you to sign in and follow along, teachingbooks.net/login, and then find diverse books or just go to teachingbooks.net/diverse books. That'll always take you there as well. Okay, first off, identifying books that are of diverse backgrounds. One question you might start with is what culture? And so currently we have 9 cultural categories on TeachingBooks. We're expanding that to many more, but for now there's these 9. And what I want you to do is think about what you're thinking about. Oh, I'm thinking about our South Asian community. I'm thinking about the disability community. I'm thinking about the American Indian community. I'm thinking about X, Y, or Z. So I can pick one. I'll pick the Latinx community. And then I'm going to grab that. And now I'm going to have 1,816 titles that have been classified in our system by this cultural experience, by the Latino, Latinx community. And then I can hone in. On our left side, there's always filtering. And we treat culture the exact same way we do curricular area, grade level, and genre. So I can say I'm right now focused on my elementary school. We're studying science, and we want a nonfiction genre because that's really important. So I'm going through and I'm narrowing down based on the filters. So now we're down to 21 titles that are Latinx, elementary, nonfiction, science. And I could even then go even deeper and go down to the resources and say, I just want to know which ones have lesson plans or something like that. So I can say which ones have lesson plans. And now I'm at these 9 titles that have lesson plans. So then I can look at what I'm after and I can say, oh my gosh, I love Francisco Alcorn. He writes amazing poems and I want those materials right here for those science poems. We're talking about snow and winter and effects and all that. And then I can get these lesson plans and I can get discussion questions. And I can get all these different materials that come from all over around that book. So that's one thing you have is, again, you can just start by going through Diverse Books Toolkit. And I'm going to show that over and over again. I'm going to go back to it a few times, a few different ways. Right now, I'm just going to type in diverse. You'll see on the far right, it will say Diverse Books Toolkit. I'm going to go back there and you can select by culture to identify and see books and then get the resources. This is just to help you identify. We also have an expanded search where you can really hone in. You can say, I know I'm just right now thinking about graphic books. I'm also thinking about my LGBT community. And you can even pick a grade level. I'm thinking about my high school or not right now. I just won't pick a grade level. And you'll see that there's 83 books that are graphic LGBTQ+. And then I can narrow down here again. I can say, now I just want my high school. And now you're going to have these 69 of them. And then we'll get to the resources in a second, but you click on one of these and then you have George Takei, They Called Us Enemy, and you have a video book trailer and you've got vocabulary lists and book trailers and all these different discussion questions and all these different materials. So the Diverse Books Toolkit is helping you identify titles. You also have a very unusual search box, which is what I call a Black, Indigenous, People of Color search results. So if I'm studying inventors and I just want to see things differently, I just want to remove the dominant results that are all over our books, and I want only Black, Indigenous, People of Color, we built that for you too. So that this search box is only looking at titles that are classified as meeting any of our cultural experience classifications. So that's to help you identify. So I click on for educators. I can go back to diverse books by culture, by subject, and expanded search. All are focused on helping you identify. Any questions before I move into changing your relationship to that text in a culturally responsive way? Questions, comments, anything? Great. Now I want to show you the tools to think deeper. So one of the things that TeachingBooks has done since we began is interviewed authors. And not only authors, but very specifically, because my background is in history of multicultural education and educational policy. From the very beginning in the 1990s, we were focused on diverse text, was now called diverse texts. I called it multiculturalism. But the idea being that how can I learn from someone who understands that perspective in a way that is respectful and appropriate and accurate? What do I know about teaching about the civil rights movement and marching across the Selma Bridge? Nothing. I've read books, I've read my history, I maybe can be accurate, I can easily make a mistake. I want to keep that in mind and I want to do it in a way that's relevant and appropriate. And so for all of these books, we've interviewed the authors behind them so that they're there talking about those experiences. So suddenly you have Elizabeth Acevedo talking about her experiences, or Inside Out and Back Again, Out and Back Again, or all of these. C.C. Bell, what is it like growing up as a deaf child and that experience of writing this text? Or the example I used before was I could teach the civil rights, but why wouldn't I want to have John Lewis in my pocket, the author of this book, talking about why he wrote it? Because Teaching Books has created these culturally relevant materials for you, for every reader.
I am John Lewis, the author of March, Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3. March tells the story of my life growing up in rural Alabama. And as a young child, I saw signs that said white waiting, white men, white women, colored women. I heard of Rosa Parks. I heard of Martin Luther King Jr. I met Rosa Parks. I met Martin Luther King Jr. when I was very young. They inspired me to get involved in the civil rights movement. And during those days, with black and white college students and some high school students, we would be sitting in at lunch counters in restaurants, going on something called a freedom ride. And they tried to segregate us. People beat us, left us bloody. And years later, I was the youngest speaker at the March on Washington when Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech.
So here you have a 2-minute and 24-second recording where he's getting to tell that story. And that's a very different approach than if I was to tell it. So when you're trying to keep cultural experiences in mind as an educator, how do we bring in primary source materials? Well, a lot of people have done a lot of research and written and spent years writing these books and or living their experiences and telling them. And so why wouldn't I want Kelly Yang here or Jason Reynolds talking about the Ferguson riots and his experiences through that and why he and Brandon Kiley wrote that book and so forth. So back to the Diverse Books Toolkit, what we're trying to do is give you the tools to think deeper, to first off identify the book, then get into it more with resources, and then to also be able to share those. So I could search by a title and author. I can go and just say I just work with teens. Show me your teen titles here. So now I get my teen books, and then I can hone in and I can say I'm just thinking right now about our Middle Eastern community. So I can narrow down to that, and then I can say, oh my gosh, all my high schools read Persepolis, right? But did they know that Marjane Satrapi could be there right now talking about why she wrote this book? Right. So here she is telling you that story. But now the most powerful thing of all of this, and we talk about keeping it in mind, it's not just in your mind, but in how you collaborate with everybody in your community. That's the goal. We're all here for each other to help each other build relationships. So if I know someone is reading Persepolis or reading March or reading The Hate You Give or reading Last Stop on Market Street or whatever book it is, Showway, great example, whatever it is, I can hit share. There's an arrow, and I'll do that again in a second. But I want you to see that right now I can share this material. When I give it to somebody, we're not asked what's the password. We're not asked to remember what the librarian taught the first day of school about access to the online resources. We're given immediate resource access to this material. So I can email it, I can text it, I can put it into a calendar. If any of you have a phone right now, grab your phone and suddenly you can scan this card over the internet and you'll scan that QR code or just go to the link that's right below there. I'll show you have both. If you type in that link or you scan it, you will now have Marjane Satrapi on your phone or your device. And you didn't need to know about teaching books. You didn't need to sign in. We're keeping cultural experience in mind. And we're distributing it in a way that's relevant because somebody's reading that book right now. And so that is really important. So the Diverse Books Toolkit, and again, ways to find it. I said you can go to the footer. I'll go down to the footer here. Here at the bottom, it says Diverse Books Toolkit. I'm gonna click that. right back to where we were. You can identify resources. You can have the original materials. Now maybe you want to dig in. Do you know how hard it is to stay up on all the books? Like Deb Salyer's with us right now, my colleague. She's doing a session on award-winning new books. That's like a full-time job, and she only can touch the surface of how many great books are out there. So our job at Teaching Books is to help you learn about these things. So if I'm focused right now on my American Indian population, you can pick any culture experience you want. But then I want to make sure you see these different resources, these collections. We have books that are chosen, that are authoritatively chosen from Dr. Claudette McClin and the Center for the Study of Multicultural Children's Literature in Los Angeles. A lot of you probably know Dr. McClin and all the amazing work she did in Los Angeles years ago. The Carter G. Woodson Award picks from social studies perspective, right? There are all these possibilities. And you can even hone in and say, I just want to see just the book awards. I don't want all the lists. I just want the book awards. So now you can find out all these book awards. You can say, you know, I've heard of the American Indian Youth Literature Award, but I don't know the Burt Award, or I don't know the Tomas Rivera Award. So you can click on that, and then you're going to get all the resources for every book that's ever been recognized by the Burt Award. And then maybe you'll learn about Marrow Thieves, one of the most amazing, hard reads, but what a book. And then if you want to learn more about it, you click into it and you'll have the recordings of it. You'll have the connections to it, the lesson plans, the vocabulary lists and everything, right? And then you can share it. So I'm trying to show you that this Diverse Books Toolkit is a tool to help you really think deeper about the books. Now, the last two things take you even deeper. So before I get into these, I want to make sure this foundation is clear. And I also want to make sure that if you're following along, that you can. You go to teachingbooks.net/login and you can sign in. And if you have Clever or ClassLink, use that. It's magic. It gets you straight to your account. Otherwise, you don't have to remember any other passwords, right? It's just one password in through Clever and ClassLink. Or just go right to teachingbooks.net/diverse-books and you can explore there, because everybody in the state is at some level authenticated. But I wanted you to make sure that you see this. So before I get into these last two sections, because I really want to make sure we have time for questions, are there any questions before I move into the cultural representation activities and the analysis of your reports? It can be as broad and vague as you wish. I'm just going to look at the chat because I'm not hearing Deb or anybody. Maybe
We're good. We're
connected.
wowed away.
We are totally. We're
Okay.
ready.
I'm trying to go slowly, which
But
is
wait,
really hard
there's
for me.
more, as I always say.
You do say that. I'll leave that to be your tagline. But there is more.
There
But
is more.
I'm not trying to confuse anyone. There's a theme here. The theme is that all of us can be culturally thoughtful about what books we offer, about the resources we have people learn from. You don't have to learn from me about the hate you give. I have not crossed those cultural divides like Angie Thomas has. Learn from her about it. And when you're going through that book, you know, when you're going through Hate You Give, so I can just say I'm looking up Hate You Give. And by the way, our search box works whether you type in the wrong spelling of things like you. You go to Hate You Give. Now I have with me her here talking about it. I have lesson plans. I have so much more. But what I next wanted to touch on was, how do we help our students in a differentiated classroom think a little more about cultural representation? And if you pause and kind of break down our relationship with books, the way I see it is that there's character and there's setting and there's plot and there's probably more, but I'm focusing on setting and characters right now. And within setting and characters, there's a huge amount of cultural representation that can take place. Setting and characters. So let's pause and show children how to think about that in any particular text. So I can look at these cultural representation reflections. So these are designed to encourage a student to do that. So at level 1, for example, and this is just the sample, it's not, I'm not signed in to show you the Hey You Give. I can in a second if you want, but it's the same questions. You're asking a young child, this is our level 1, describe using words or drawings yourself and then your character. And then you get to look at it and see what's similar and what's different, right? How do I fit into that picture? What do I look like versus the character in Hate You Give? Or the grandma in the bus of the last stop in Market Street. I'm drawing all the characters. I pick grandma. How am I different than grandma? Whatever, right? I'm thinking about them, honing in. And then as you think about the text, because we're after evidence, we're after deep thinking. I'm not after what did you think about? Did you like page 2? Yes or no? I'm after what did you think about when you paused? Did you actually notice familiarities or differences in things like the appearances of people or the foods or the actions or the languages or the places, right? And then what have you seen? What was in this book that I'm familiar with? And what is it that I have not experienced before, right? If this book was taking place on a safari in Eastern Africa, you know, that's not my life experience. So therefore it's going to be different and I'm going to think about it and write about it. And you can then do a level 2, which is going to have you think about Venn diagrams, some of the same things, but in levels of the characters and setting of the books about what's in the book, what's in your world, and what are the similarities. So it's a Venn diagram, but designed for PDFs, because all this is typable and you can type into all these and answer your questions and submit them to your teachers and students and share. And then you have things about familiarity and new. How did you feel when you saw certain things? When I saw in Yoko, when I saw the girl sushi not appreciated, how did I feel? I think I was really kind of embarrassed and sad and felt excluded, whatever. So you get to write about your feelings, because that's kind of what cultural responsiveness is on some level, right? It's how are you feeling about the situation that's been presented? And can we take that lesson and think about what the book is giving us to new places? So as we get to our older level, our level 3, you really get asked some deep questions, like this one right here. So imagine reading The Hate You Give or any book and being asked to elaborate on that in your high school English class. What I'm trying to get at is that when you're on the Diverse Books Toolkit, or when you're ever in throughout TeachingBooks, you're able to actually, for all these 43,000 titles, these have cultural representation activities ready for you. And within that, you can assign either the same title. Let's say we're all reading Wonder, and I can assign a level 1 to some kids, a level 3 to another, and a level 2 to another. That's representing differentiation in your classroom. Or you can say we're doing school reading choice, and Nick is reading Brown Girl Dreaming, and Deb is reading Last Stop on Market Street. Perfectly wonderful. And here's the level of thought, but your assignment is thinking about cultural representation. So there's many ways these, what we call our multi-leveled lessons, work to scaffold and differentiate for you. And these are called our cultural representation reflection sheets. They were designed for one reason only: to empower you to have conversations that get people to pause and see what they wouldn't have necessarily seen otherwise, and to dig deeper into it. This is the goal of these activities. If you'd like that, you have it now. You might not have known.
Could you show them on the book page once again, please? Where to
Sure.
find those?
Just gonna wait for everyone to be able to read this and see it in another way without me blabbing at them, and then I'll show it. It also outlines here for you what you get in each level. What is being done in each level for each student? What Deb asked is, when I'm on a page, so when I do a search, let's say I look up, let's go back to Diverse Books Toolkit. And then I'm doing a search here and I'm grabbing disability books that are graphic for my middle school or elementary, I guess is what I clicked. Now I have these books. I click El Defo. When you're here, that activity I showed you is part of either the original materials. It's in two places. It's original. Teaching Books create it the same way we create our author name pronunciations and our blog posts and our recordings with authors. We have a text complexity. We do a lot of things that are just for you. Whether you know that or not, I have no idea, but I'm just showing you, we do a lot of original stuff and we want, but this is called the cultural representation reflection, but it's also under book guides, activities, and lessons. There's a version of our multi-leveled lessons for story mapping, if that's what you're teaching. But this session is about helping you keep diversity and inclusion in mind. And part of that is to see and encourage students to pause, or your colleagues and you to pause and look deeply within a text. What did you see? What are you now noticing? El Defo's on. If anyone knows the book, I will never forget the moment in that book when she's in a room and she's at her first sleepover. I don't remember any of the details, but she was at a sleepover and they turn off the light, and guess what kids do when they turn off the light? They start gabbing. But suddenly she couldn't participate because she can't see their lips, right? I still feel that. And if I can get a student to pause, to think about what that experience was, oh, the setting, the relationship, right? What can we do to get everybody to see things differently? So when I turn off a light, and if I know someone's short of hearing, then I'm really causing a problem. Let me not do that anymore, to be respectful for each other. That's what we're trying to do. So it's available on every title page. You also can access them if you're browsing our site. You can go through and click browse, and you can go to our resource types, and you can see here all the different books that have cultural representation reflections. Or anytime you do a search, so if I did a search on sleep, I have no idea. I don't know why sleep came. Let's do something different. Inventors. So I do a search on inventors. I showed you the Black, Indigenous, people of color search before. This is what the other one would look like, right? But then if I go down here under book guides and lesson plans on the left side, you can now pick which of these titles have that reflection note sheet. And that's now down to these 189. And then I can hone in some more and say, I'm actually really just focused right now on our African-American group. And that's the cultural experience we're discussing right now. And then I know that when I click on the Unstoppable Garrett Morgan, I know that book will have here, there it is, the cultural representation reflection. Questions, comments? There's still one more area I want to cover, which is equally complex. But I hope that you're getting out of this, that in this tool, you have a way to collaborate with your students, your teachers, your families, by sharing resources, right? Even if it's just as simple, the one I actually like to just play around with is, how do you say this person's name? A lot of us know this author. And remember, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And maybe we've taken the time to read it and dig deeper into an experience that I, as a white Northern male, could never have experienced anything that she went through, right? But that's why we asked her why she wrote the book. But we also asked her how to say her name. There's so many levels of humanizing. And within someone's name, there's huge cultural sides to it, right? I'll play this one. I like this particular, Outside Out and Back Again. Outside, Inside Out and Back Again. Do you know how to say her name? I don't speak Vietnamese, so I found it really helpful.
Hi, my name is Thanh Ha Lai. Tang with a clear bell sound. Ang, ang, ang. Now put th in front of it for tang. Ha has an accent that directs the tone downward. So not ha as in ha ha ha, but ha. Hang means gentle, and ha means river.
And then you get into the cultural component, right?
I was born in Vietnam, and last names go first there. So I was called Lai Thi Thanh Ha. The Thi is added to every female name.
This is what I mean by cultural recognition. And the same thing you might have noticed earlier, I changed the language. Maybe one of you in your class only speaks a certain language. Maybe I think I used Tagalog. I don't remember what I did, but maybe someone only there just speaks Japanese or Indonesian or what have you. So while playing it, you're now reminding
Everyone
everybody
there just called me
about
Ha.
the
So when I
cultural
moved to Alabama,
diversity, the
fourth
celebration in
graders
your
kept
classroom.
calling me Ha Ha Ha. So I thought I would punish them and make them say my middle and first.
Because everything here is, the reason we transcribe it is so it can be accessible and more available to people, but also showing that we are thinking about each other. Any questions, Deb, before I want to make sure we have time for other questions, but I want to just cover one last area, but I don't want to stifle any questions.
Nope, they're wanting to know more about the collection analysis.
Wonderful. That happens to be the next thing. So that's perfect. Thank you, Deborah. So on the Diverse Books Toolkit, we've talked about how to identify the books using these tools at the top 3 bars, right? And they all just open. You can click the plus or minus on the side or just the space. It will always open them for you. We've talked about the resources that get you to dig deeper, the cultural representation activities, the interviews. Talked about how you can always learn about what there is for any particular culture so you can keep up on it, on what you need to know. Instead of trying to learn everything, all I'm focused on right now is my American Indian population, and I want to make sure I'm doing really well. I want to think about what books have won awards and resources. You have all that. Now I wanted to talk about the collection analysis reports on diversity and inclusion. So everything TeachingBooks is doing is trying to use technology to deepen your relationship to the book. And one thing we have is a lot of really useful information. It's not the be all end all, it's just useful information. So we have classified books based on definitions that we have, which I can show you in a second where they all are. We're very transparent with our definitions for all these different cultural areas. The same way we classified books by grade levels or by curricular areas, but we also have cultural experience. And once we do that, we realize that we can give you a way to look back at your list, to analyze it and see, is it meeting your needs? So are we talking about a classroom list? Are we talking about your library collection? Are we talking about your reading program? I don't know. So let's just look at a few lists. So on TeachingBooks, we have a lot of lists. So let's just start by typing in California. And you're familiar with the California Young Readers Medals. So I can just start with any of those. It doesn't matter. I know there's only 3 books on it. It's not going to be the most inclusive of collections. But nonetheless, you can pause and look at this. And you can see, and you'll see for every list, it has this spot here. It says List Analysis Report. Just one little button there. It's highlighted in red. Has the text complexity triangle so we never forget quantitative, qualitative, and reader and task. I'm kind of goofy that way. But then what you get is this. You get the ability to think about that based on a number of areas that are in your collection. And then we give you a spreadsheet and the ability to print this for other reasons. So you can have the spreadsheets, you can do your own analysis to go deeper. And we also print it because we're big believers in honoring you as professionals. I want you to be able to add to your professional growth portfolio that you've done this and tell to your principal, I've evaluated our picture book collection and here's what I saw. Thank you. We know how important it is to advocate for libraries and your work, but let's just look at these 3 books. So you'll see here that this is what there is. Admittedly, it's only 3 titles. I'm going to show you a bigger one in a second. But then you can say, I never thought about the fact that, and I don't know why American Indian is showing up in both places. I do know why, it's just a programming bug. But no Latinx, no LGBTQ, no graphic books, no nonfiction, whatever it is you want to think about. It's just helping you. Let's go to a larger list. Let's go to the California list from our union, our teachers union, the CTA.
Excuse me, Nick.
Yes.
I know you wanted me to let you know that it is
Perfect.
10 minutes until
Thank you, Kathleen.
our closing.
You're the best.
Thank you.
Nick, you're muted.
Sorry, Nick. I think I did that. I apologize.
How's that? Can you hear me now?
Great. Yes.
So with the California teachers list here, you get more books, you get to dig in more. The other thing you can do is you can build your own lists. So you can either look up a particular program, like let's say you're just using Springboard. I'm just trying to grab some things you might, maybe your high school English class, you got these 13 books. You can build a list like this that has it, but then you get to analyze what your teachers are looking at or what you're teaching. Or you're purchasing a set of books and you build a list, and then you click list analysis, and then you can see what you have and what you don't have. And if you want to use TeachingBooks to build your list, you can even think, all right, let me do a search on Latinx and then grab what I need for that and then put it into my list. Because we have a whole list making tool. So I don't want to get too deeply caught up into that, but this is available in a few places to walk you through it. It's not only in our Diverse Books toolkit, but it's also part of our whole book list and collection analysis tools, where you can actually build your list one title at a time, or drop in you can even drop in all your picture books and see what we got. And so we have a tool. It takes some massaging. It's not simple. Data matching is an art form. It's not immediate if you're asking us to take your Word document and put it into our database and think that everybody spelled everything exactly right. But when we take the time to massage it, it's then going to give you that ability. So TeachingBooks has, to summarize, and then I want to answer questions. To summarize what I wanted to show you is that I really want you to know that you can keep diversity in mind every time you're thinking about your collection, your collaboration, and your one-to-one with students and their families. You can always translate recordings to honor things. We have transcriptions for all of our audio and a lot of our video, and you can translate that into 109 languages. When you're thinking about what books to provide people, you can do analyses. You can learn about what's authoritative, what's won that award that is specifically designed for choosing the best American Indian Youth Literature Award, chosen by no one other than the American Indian Library Association's Youth Indian Literature Award Committee. And so you can learn to include that, and then you can share those materials out with anybody. And you can keep digging deeper and deeper. And the very last thing I want to add is that you can always reach out to us for support. Deb Salyer is on this call right now. She or I or any of our colleagues would be delighted to walk you through this slowly at a pace that works so you can be successful. It takes a real effort to think deeply, whether it's about reading a book or imagining running your collection and trying to make sure that it's going to meet the incredible needs that you have. And we're here with you on that quest. And that is why I asked to speak at this conference today, so that you could have a chance to see the depth of what's provided to you and to know that we're here for you. So with that, I will answer any questions. We've got 6 minutes before we're kicked out of this room. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there some questions? You can raise your hand or put it in chat.
Do you feel, I don't want to overwhelm anybody. It's a big topic, right? And it's really an important one, and it's step by step. So you could just say, I just want to learn about the Schneider Award and focus on our disability community and put those books in our collection. You've done wonderfully. Or you can just start sharing more and more. It's whatever level you wish to take it. I don't want to, this is a lifetime of work. I've been at this, since 1992, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Nick,
Please.
one tip that I might give folks is,
Please,
as
Deborah.
you are doing these in larger batches, you want to be sure the integrity is really got to match. So you want to be sure that you have your titles match your authors. And so you want to clean those up as best you can. And you want to make sure that you have the same number of titles and authors.
Yep.
So it's easier to do it in a smaller batch so you can figure out where there's an issue. And
Start
I'm
one at a
happy
time.
to help you with that too. You can come back to our exclusive exhibit time today, which is at 3, or send us an email. You can email me, deb@teachingbooks.net, and I'll help you with that too.
Deb's so right. Data matching is the trick. But we can get really close if we work together. If you follow the directions, it's going to be. Not everybody is a data nerd like I am. If you don't know, I was a
Question.
statistician first. Please.
There is a question. Are there videos showing us how
Thank
to
you. I'm so
get to
glad you
some of
asked
these
that.
tools?
Brilliant. Awesome. Yes, of course there are. Just I wasn't thinking. So you go to help. Do you see help at the top of the screen? And then under training, guess what there's videos for? I'm sorry, you go to help and then you go to video tutorials. And under video tutorials, guess what? Here's one on making a list, right? So that's right there to walk you through that. And then under our 2-minute takeaways, my guess is there are some things there on this. I don't know all the topics here. And then there's probably a webinar under our archive webinars. So yes, under here, under video tutorials, we have parts to walk you through how to build a list, and then the analysis is just hitting a button, right? But to go through those parts, and I think we're gonna, yes is the answer. There's something we can always do more to keep making that easier. We're waiting to rebuild our whole cultural collection, where that whole analysis part is being revised. It's not going to change anything for you other than get more relevant. But we felt we could do better, so we're undertaking just a small project of reclassifying every book in our library or something like that.
And thank you, Deb, for weighing in on and the format of the export.
Yeah.
That it would be best success with last name, first name when it comes to authors.
But
I
really hope that you see that there's so many levels of how we can do our job. And just you can just share a resource. You're doing wonderfully. You can pause. You can ask for help. Deb, myself, my whole team, we're all excited to support you. That's why we get up in the day. And we're really happy and honored to do that. So you do have us in your back pocket as you're keeping this in mind. Anything else, please?
Lots of thanks.
Well, that's all I have too. So we'll bow out early and
thank
give you
you
the
for
room
being
2 minutes early, Kathleen.
Oh, and thank you so much for being responsive to requests. The contact us is always a good place to look, as well as the FAQs. I found that to be many times just takes care of everything I need.
Right. So under the help
thank you
area.
all so much for attending today.
Yep. Likewise.
Go ahead,
and Deb, thank you, Kathleen, everybody at CSLA, and our very best, and let us know how we can help you. It's a long journey to make change, and don't feel like you're alone, and feel like there's great materials and great support, and we always have so much more to learn. So feel free to share with us. We're all learning to get too. So thank you.
We're all learning together, better together. So
Totally,
thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for presenting, both of you. It's a pleasure, and all of you that attended, please enjoy your next session.
Thanks.
Thank you both.
You betcha.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you, Nicholas.